Hi, everybody. It's Kathi Ondus with Simply Cards by Kathi.
And I'm Pat Fairless from Fairless Stampin Flair.
And we are both Stampin Up demonstrators. And we are actually on the same team, Clumpin' Stampers. And that's how we met. I'm in Ohio.
And I'm in Michigan. So we don't live next door to each other, but we've become friends virtually, right?
We have, and we've been able to work together over the last couple of months on some things, kind of supporting each other and coming up with ideas how we can better both serve our customers. And one of the ways we've come up to do that is we've come up with Connect to Create. Connect to Create is going to be a weekly video, and it won't be live because we're not able to stream it to both of our platforms live, but we'll pre-record it and we'll have it out in our newsletters. So if you're not subscribed to our newsletters, do so. And you'll be able to see either on our Facebook pages or our YouTube pages on our social media platforms. So one place you can always be sure to see it is on Facebook or YouTube. So, Pat, do you have
Thanks, Kathi. I think we're going to drop Kathi off and be patient with me when it comes to the technology. Kathy's been my big assistant and big help on the technology end of it. She's been doing videos for a while, and those of you who know me, not so much. So I have to figure out how to switch to another camera, and I will do that, but we'll let you go, Kathi.
All right. And I'll see everybody next week. Have fun.
Bye-bye. Okay, so now you're stuck with just me, guys. And like I said, I owe a lot to Kathi. She's been very, very helpful to me the last several weeks that we've been working together. And today I'm going to do a technique. This is actually World Watercoloring Month. So all this month, we're going to be sharing some watercoloring techniques. Each week, we'll have a different one. And like she said, we will alternate. So today I'm going to do something that I call Stampin' Spritz. And it's a little bit messy. I have to switch over to my other camera, so I'm going to try to do that. So be patient with me as I work through the technology. Okay. Okay. Sorry for the squeals. That's one of the things we're still trying to overcome. So I am going to just show my desktop so you can see a little bit more space. So hold on, and I'll take my picture now. There we go. Okay, I hope you can see me and hear me. And like I said, today we're going to be doing a technique called Stamp and Spritz, or Spritz and Stamp. And there's actually a lot of different ways to do this particular technique. The supplies that you'll need will be a water painter. And we have 3 different size water painters, and I'm only going to be using the large one for this. There is actually just the brush one. There is no requirement for fancy coloring or staying inside the lines. It's just meant to get a surface wet. And then we will use our Stampin' Spritzer. And I'm hoping I don't make too big of a mess here on my little space, but we'll give it a try. So again, like I said, there are several different ways to do this. So I'm just going to kind of try to show you each of them. I am going to be using the watercolor shapes stamps. I'll use this oval one, it'll just fit, but I just want to show you the different methods of doing this. So one of them is to spritz the stamp. So I'm going to use Starry Sky ink. And a hint, sometimes you may want to stamp off if you have a really dark stamp like this, because it will get very intense, but it'll show good, I think, on the video. So I'm going to use the Starry Sky, and you can ink this up and then brush some water lightly here on the cardstock. Now, this is not making it very wet. It's just making it a little bit damp. That big one doesn't go back in there very good. And then I'm going to spritz some ink on my stamp. And I better move my stamp pad out of the way or I'll get ink everywhere. So I will spritz this lightly, and because spritzing can make a mess, I'm going to hold it over this little tray and some paper. And I just spritzed once. And then we stamp. Okay, so you can see how it's kind of moving a little bit. So that is dampen your cardstock. I'm using watercolor paper, by the way. You can also use shimmery white. And I could do the same thing on shimmery white paper. It will look a little different. The water tends to move a little bit more on there because there's not as much texture. But it works. So let me dry this off. Should have brought my chamois. Knew I was forgetting something. Okay, the next method we can do is we can take again our brush, and where the last time I just dampened it, this time I'm going to squeeze a little bit and actually get it pretty wet. Okay, so I would call this one wet, not quite pooled, but very wet. And I will ink my stamp again. And this time, because my watercolor paper is so wet, I'm not going to spritz my stamp. I'm just going to stamp on here. But it'll look slightly different with the watercolor paper being quite wet. Okay. So that's the next way to do it. Then, if we really want the water or the ink to flow, we can spritz our paper, ink our stamp, and do it. And it'll look similar to the one we just did. And again, it depends very much on how much water you use. So if I spritz on here with more water, I'll just show you what happens. If I almost make this so there's like a little puddle on there, and I stamp on here, and then spritz again on the stamp. And depending on how much I spritz on here, right now I got water on water, and it's going to really flow. See what I mean? So this is more just like an all over kind of a look. And then the last way to do it, I get a piece of paper towel here just a bit because my surface is already getting wet. I knew that was going to be problematic, but the other way to do it is I have my stamp dry and my paper dry, just like we would normally stamp. Stamp on here, and it's a normal stamp, right? And now take your spritzer, and again, I'm going to bring my little tray in because my back paper is getting kind of wet, and spritz on. Both of these have been just dry, no water, and I'm just going to spritz. And depending on where your spritzing ends up and how much you spritz, it makes it push in that direction. And I could spray this a lot. I can keep spraying, and you could pick this up and let it run around, do what you want with that. So those are basically I would say 4 or 5 different ways that you can do stamp or spritz. Now, how would I use this in a card is a good question, because these all just kind of look like blobs, right? What do you do with that? Sometimes a blob's good. We have stamps that are splotches, and you may just want it to spread a little bit. But what I did is I'll set these aside. And I'm not going to make a whole card for you today. You've seen the ways to do it. So I thought I'd just show you a couple ways I used this and combined it with other colors. So this is watercolor paper, and I just used the various stamps from the watercolor shapes, and these are all the 20, 22, 24 in colors. And this technique here, was the last one I showed you. I stamped them dry on dry paper and no spritzing on my stamp. And then I just spritzed my watercolor paper with water. And you can see that some of these really ran a lot, particularly this red one here. You can see how it really covered up the teal. It ran. I spritzed quite a bit. So that's one way to do it. And then this one here was more, I used the techniques more like the first ones I showed you. I used my water painter to paint a little bit behind each one before I stamped, just partially. And then I stamped and let it flow. Those it doesn't flow as much. When you start spraying water, it's going to go where it wants to go. So if you're the kind of person who really likes to have controlled results, go light on the water, because if once you start spraying water, you have no control. Like you can see on this one here, there's no control where that went. That just, it goes where the water goes. So this, if you're the kind of person who just likes to go with the flow, then that's a perfect thing for you to play with and see which way you like the best. This one, by the way, this one I don't remember if I said this is on shimmery white. So it also looks a little different. You can see some shimmer on there with less water. So to summarize here, we have, like I said, this is just stamped dry. This one I spritzed an ink stamp and then stamped. This one I brushed a little bit on the paper first and stamped. This one I did some of each, and this one I just had a lot more water. So it's a matter of playing. These are the same techniques over here on shimmery white. When I use shimmery white, I also like to use less water because it doesn't handle the water quite as well. You can really get watercolor paper wet without having to worry about damaging the water. So to see a couple completed cards, here was my first card. After I made these items here that I showed you, I either cut them down as needed and then just layered them on a card. Used the Amazing Thanks dies and some of our in color ribbon, and super simple card. On the inside, I just stamped directly. I didn't really spritz for the inside and the envelope. So that was one card. And then the other card, that one I just showed you was on shimmery white. This one is on watercolor paper. And again, I cut some of the stems out from the Splendid Thought stamp set that's in the new mini. These were all made with that, as is the sentiment. So that's it for Spritz and Stamping. I hope you guys liked it, and I will go back over here and see if I can get back to adding me in. And I will. I'm not sure if you heard that. Said I had my mic muted, so you might not have. Anyway, so thank you guys for watching today. And Kathi and I would love to get your feedback. If you have ideas for techniques or certain fun folds or something that you would like to see a video on, please contact us. And in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks.